Hello everyone, this is Megastix here with actually a new avatar. I kinda just created this because I realized while watching some of my old videos, it's always good to have something that you can relate to the voice. So I decided to go with that. And as for this video, it's actually something I really wanted to do, as I really want to do something Pokemon related with everything that's happening. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet came out recently, Ash is leaving the Pokemon anime. I also just wanted to draw some Pokemon stuff, so yeah, I wanted to go ahead and just give a few Pokemon new evolutions. Quite honestly, I felt like some of them needed it, but others, I just know people don't like them, and I felt if they evolved, people might maybe like them more, but you get the point. I don't think I really draw on the Pokemon style all too much, so just go a little easy on me here. I'm not really the biggest Pokemon stylist, so without any further ado, let's begin. Now, first off here, I actually really wanted to have a Pika clone try to evolve, just like to see if I can do better than Palmot, since I think everyone was a little disappointed with how Palmot and Pamo turned out. And well, since Alola has my favorite Pika clone, that being Togedemaru, I wanted to try and give that an evolution. It's also, in my opinion, the only Pika clone that can really be built on, aside from Morpeko, without going the Palmy route and just making a bigger version. So this is Togedemesu. Togedemaru is basically a small, round, spiky ball. Not much else to it. And there's a medieval weapon called, well, a flail, which is typically portrayed as a weapon with a large wooden handle, a chain on the end, that happens to be connected to a small, round, spiky ball sometimes. Well, I gave Togedemesu a more hedgehog-like snout and a flail-like tail. I also made its ears kind of drape down onto its face to resemble like a knight's mask. Now, obviously it keeps the same typing as Togedemaru. I also think the same evolution method as Pikachu, which is a Thunderstone, makes sense for it. As for the stats, a speedy physical attacker is probably the best option, because Togedemaru, when we always see it in action, it's always seen as like a fast Pokemon, and with it being Steel type, I just feel like a physical attacker makes sense for it. Now, onto the Pokédex entry, which I actually really enjoy. Togedemesu will use the electric pads on its feet to hover before spinning horizontally at a high speed. One hit from its tail could chop a tree in half, and if you're not careful, even chop you in half. Yeah, I kind of had fun with the Pokédex entries, but you get the point. Togedemaru's name originally comes from Toge, Japanese for spike, Denki, Japanese for electricity, Maru, Japanese for round, and Togenezumi, the Japanese name for the Ryukyu spiny rat, which Togedemaru is based on. And for Togedemesu, I swapped Maru for Mesu and Foreru. Mesu is Japanese for mace, and Foreru is Japanese for flail. Now, I think Mesu might be mace in terms of, like, the food, as in, like, corn. But either way, I still have the Foreru, which is flail, so we'll see if it makes sense. Anyway, I think it's time that we move on to the next one. Okay, next up we have Sudowoodo. I honestly really like Sudowoodo's fun concept, but I feel like it could be improved if you add some extra elements. Its normal concept is just that it stands there. It's meant to be a fake tree. It's meant to stand there like perfectly still, petrified wood. But I feel like if you add extra elements to it, you could make a much better design. And so this is Sudokata, Sudowoodo's new evolution. A rock fighting type based on the Terracotta Army and the British soldiers at Buckingham Palace. Well, because they aren't ever supposed to move. And also, the Terracotta Army is statues. They can't move. Well, hopefully they can't. And Sudowoodo's entire gimmick, as I said earlier, is that it doesn't move too much. It's meant to be a tree. Plus, this way, the pseudo or fake part of its name is still accurate since it's made of rock and not terracotta, which is a form of clay. As for how it evolves, I think it should be a friendship evolution like Bonsly into Sudowoodo. Why a friendship evolution in particular? well, a soldier is more likely to defend something or someone if it has fond memories or respect for what it's defending. So a friendship evolution makes the terracotta soldier inspiration much more intertwined into the design and lore of the entire thing. As for the stats, I think a physical tank fits it best, being able to take hits and then dish them out, but a little weak on the special side where it can't get a solid hit. Now for the Pokédex entry. Okay, this one I wasn't really too sure on because there's not really much to talk about, so I'm sorry if it's a little underwhelming. Sudokata will stand guard no matter the weather. Rain or shine, they'll stand ready and waiting. If anyone threatens it or its trainer, it will not hesitate to crush their skulls into mush. Now, onto its name origin. Well, its name is obviously pseudo. A different spelling of pseudo is in pseudo-legendary, meaning fake. Fake legendary. Pseudo-wudo, fake wood. Yeah. And, well, terracotta, a type of earthenware clay. Basically, it's a Buckingham Palace guard that's basically also a terracotta soldier, but instead of being real terracotta, it's fake terracotta, so pseudokata. I really like this concept, and honestly, I'm really glad I was able to use my creativity to bring this into being, because this is just such a good, fleshed out concept behind what Sudowoodo's whole gimmick is. And well, I think we need to move on to the third one, which is actually a Pokemon I didn't think needed an evolution, but I gave it one anyway because people don't like it. Okay, moving on, we have Heatmor. Now, I personally think Heatmor is a pretty well-designed Pokemon, as I said earlier, but I know a majority of people don't really care for it all too much. It was one of the Gen 5 Pokemon that really didn't get enough attention, in my opinion. It's actually well-designed, which is why it's pretty difficult to create an evolution for it. But considering, while it is pretty solid concept-wise, I think I can do something a little different, but I think it might still work. That's why Hitero looks so different from Heatmor, because Heatmor is an anteater but a fire type. So, what if Durant burrowed further into the earth where it was too dangerous for Heatmor to travel? Durant would get so far underground that if a Heatmor went too far, and Durants made their tunnel collapse, that Heatmor would be trapped under there and eventually perish. Well, maybe Heatmor would evolve to hunt their prey better, becoming a fire ground type in order to hunt Durant just a little easier. And well, anteaters don't exactly dig. They have really long claws, sure, but those are used to break into termite mounds, not dig. So I figured I'd use a real-world example of convergent evolution, and use the Aardvark for new inspiration for this evolution. The really drastic evolution, while it is a little out there, it does indeed work. I turned Heatmor's little down space and snout into an active volcano trunk. Its smokestack tail becoming an active volcano as well. The new fur on its back is actually based on razorback hogs. Yep, the good old Arkansas Razorbacks. It is from Unova or Pokemerica after all. Makes sense you'd include a little bit of football in there. That's also where its more feral appearance ends up coming from. This Pokemon is probably a special tank that burrows into the ground to launch globs of magma and cause seismic activity around it. It should probably be a level up evolution that learns dig after it evolves. And the Pokédex entry is also pretty cool in my opinion, but that's my opinion. Most Heatmors are content with waiting for Durants to come out of their burrows to hunt them, taking a more patient strategy. But a select few Heatmor grow angry that they can't hunt their prey, and they grow hungry. So hungry that they will start to scratch the ground in an attempt to get to their prey. However, if they keep at it for long enough, their body will start to react to the determination they show, and they will evolve into this specialized form. As for its name, it's actually pretty deep. Its name is a mix of course, heat, a word used to describe when stuff warms up, terraform to change the landscape or the earth around you. And if I butcher this spelling, ignore it. Orycteropus afer, the scientific name for the modern aardvark, all of which makes sense for what this Pokemon is at its core. A terraforming aardvark that's able to heat up its surroundings and launch magma at people. I mean, it makes sense. But anyway, moving on to the next Pokemon, which not many people have a problem with, but I really do. As I already mentioned, I don't like Passimian. While Oranguru to me always felt like a complete design, I always felt like Passimian just had less of a concrete design. While Oranguru is an orangutan who's also, well, a guru being a wise teacher, basically a sensei, Passimian was just a basic primate loosely based on the ring-tailed lemur that seemed ready to play rugby. It didn't seem conclusive to me. It was under-inspired in my opinion. So I decided this evolution would have to have a more important inspiration. So I decided to base the evolution on the early Aztec sport, which I'm going to butcher the name of, Tachitli? You get what I'm trying to say. The ring you'd see in Tachili rings act as the collar for Pasgresso. The green pattern on its torso is meant to resemble the garb of soccer/football players. Depending on where you're from, determines what you call it. Its tail, which is now a compression band for its waist, is even skinnier and more lemur-like. Its helmet even becomes a stylish headpiece like the Aztec feathered headdresses. I considered making the Pokemon dark fighting type for a second, due to the fact that most people, when they talk about ancient Aztecs, talk about, like, people getting sacrificed to deities and stuff, but I just decided to make it pure fighting, because the sport still goes on today, just it's a lot less violent. It's actually a pretty fun thing to watch. It's probably just a level up evolution, once again, and I also think it'd be a fast physical attacker, much like Togedemasu, that I mentioned first. Now, it's time for the Pokedex entry, which, I think works. The largest Passimian will hold a tournament where many Passimian will fight for the chance to feint an opponent and evolve. What they sadly don't know is that the host of the tournament will fight the weakened winner and easily win and evolve. As for Pasgresso's name, it's time for the origins. It combines pass, which is to throw an object. Pretty simple. Aggressive, pursuing one's goals forcefully in this definition of it. Which, I mean, makes sense. Most people on a sports field will pursue their goals through any means necessary. Hockey, football, soccer. Well, or football, but I had just said football in an American term, and then trying to say football again, and then going football wouldn't really make sense, but you get the point. Then there's bonobo, which is a species of great ape, which I took inspiration from since Oranguru is an orangutan, so great ape, yeah. And combined, it all sounds like espresso, which actually makes sense for the high energy you typically see in sports, especially from the fans. And I feel like I took this Pokemon I really wasn't a fan of and made it just a little better. At least in my opinion. People probably don't share that opinion, but you get the point. Now moving on to the last one, it's a Pokemon that has needed an evolution for a while now, and it fixes a lot of the gripes people have with it. As I said, most people don't like this Pokemon for one reason or the other, but that's why I wanted to put Castform on this list, because it's quite a strange Pokemon with a very specific gimmick. Now, the main issue with creating an evolution was what to do with its form changing. Now, the obvious choice would be to basically give all its different forms an evolution as well, but I went a little different, and I decided to try and combine all the forms into something design-wise. So that's how I made Draft Form, a rough draft of an evolved Castform. With it being December, I figured I could add some winter elements to it. So, what do you know that's winter themed? That much like cast form, its body is made up of 3 round orbs. If you haven't figured it out yet, yeah, there's some Frosty the Snowman elements in there. Hence its 3-segment body like original cast form. However, I'm specifically drawing inspiration from a Frosty movie where there's a magic spray that gets rid of snow and it ends up putting a hole in his chest or stomach. It's one of the two. And it also has a different purpose for draft form specifically, despite just adding its hail or snow form in. That different purpose is it also serves as a wind tunnel, a device used to test how well materials can stand up to hurricane force winds and, well, rain. Hence, the rain form. Well, then you see the ring around its bottom. I think we all know where that's going. It's a ring, like the ones around Saturn. Space also brings the sun in, so the sunny form. And the ring around it and Saturn's rings are made of ice and water, so all 3 forms can fit into that ring. And then the sandstorm form, I'll get to it. Its draft form is pure steel type, because it's based on a weather vane. You know, those really cool, there's an animal on top and then it has north, east, southwest, never eat soggy waffles. See? Makes sense. The ring's colors, or the colors on the ring, represent its forms. And it's obviously going to get a sandstorm form because, yeah, why shouldn't it? But it also represents the 4 cardinal directions. As I said, never eat soggy waffles. Now, I haven't really said anything about abilities yet because I didn't think abilities really mattered for most of them. But here, I think cast form should have an ability that changes all its normal moves into whatever weather is active, like an opposite to normalize. Since it doesn't really change forms anymore, I think this is the best way to keep its original gimmick while still making it a new, better Pokemon. Draft form, I think, should have a full 90 across the board in every stat, which, while it might sound incredible, it's just making its base stat 540, the same as Gyarados, which makes it viable now, which is something that it wasn't before. And onto its Pokédex entry, which explains its evolution method, which also explains why it has a 540 base stat, because it's pretty hard to obtain. When a trainer takes cast form to the lab that first made the Pokémon, after the Pokémon has experienced all weather effects in a single battle, they can use the leftover energy inside of cast form to evolve it into a stronger form. However, this does tend to make the cast form tumble over, since it's fairly top-heavy in its new, stronger form. Yeah, it's a little bumping around, bobbing, kind of bobblehead-inspired thing, which works for cast form. It's a goofy little guy. And its name origin is actually pretty neat, too. It's a draft. It's a form that's not perfected or in need of being changed. It's a rough draft of a cast form evolution. But also draft as in like a cold draft you get in like an old house or something. Then there's overcast, a covering of gray clouds, weather-based stuff. And obviously, form, how something is seen or how something takes its, well, I don't want to say form, but lack of a better word, form. I just really like the goofy concept here. I really like the fact that this does seem like something cast form would evolve into, yet it also makes it so much better. I think let's move on to the outro. With that final evolution design, we come to the end of the video. Now, I feel like this concept was pretty fun to make and to put my own spin on. Obviously, people have made Fakemon evolutions before, it's nothing special. Some of these designs were indeed pretty strange, but they did let me vent my creative side, so I'm proud of all these designs in the end. Having said that, this is the end of the video. So if I could ask you all to like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. It helps boost my algorithm, and maybe it'll help get me out there into the world. If you want to see more of my art, please check out my Instagram or my DeviantArt at, well, Megasticks. Should be up on the screen now, and if it isn't, then editing me has a problem. Anyway, I wish you all a good day, week, month, and year. This is Styx, signing off.